What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor, and this is going to be a bit of a different video today. And the reason being is because a couple of hours ago, I saw a story on Instagram, an Instagram reel, of someone trying to break into someone's hotel room in San Jose, and someone was using like a freaking stick or something like that to try to open the door. And I was seeing this and seeing all this crazy stuff that's going on in hotels recently. I wanted to come out and talk about my experience because someone actually did try to get into my room a little while ago. So, just to preface this happened during my trip, my severe weather trip, my storm chasing trip, and basically this happened on the last day that we were chasing, because after this we had 2 days of heading home. We were in the panhandle of Texas when this was going on. We had just got out of Perryton. I had a bunch of videos and all that. I have not released a video talking about that yet. I still kind of need to. And yeah, so after we were done doing what we were doing, we ended up going to a place in Shamrock, Texas, and we ended up checking into a hotel. And myself, Matt, and Ethan, both of them have been on the channel before. You guys know them. Matt's one of my mods. He was in my April Fool's video last year. And Ethan, I always interview him. That's the stuff that we do. He's the guy I always talk to. And basically, I got into a room with those guys. We checked in. We made our way to our room. And on the way there was another guy on his way to, I believe, his hotel room. I'm not 100% sure where he was going. And he struck a conversation with us. This guy looked a bit weird. It was like he had a long white beard. I'm not sure if he was or not, but he looked like he was blind in one eye, or like maybe there's a scratch or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. And all that stuff, and he was bald, and he struck a conversation, asked where we were from, what we were doing. We told him we were storm chasing, and talked a little bit about the stuff we were doing in Perryton, kind of this normal stuff that we were talking about. So the conversation itself wasn't a big deal. We were kind of just talking, laughing, doing all that. Then we get to our room, and I put my key in, and I noticed in the corner of my eye, he's kind of just standing there after saying bye to us and all that. He's kind of just standing there. He's lurking there like a little too long. You know how people sometimes just stand there and say bye and all that. But to me, it just felt a little uncomfortable. And it just, yeah. And after seeing that, I went ahead, and as soon as I let everyone else in, I just bolted the door because I had a bad feeling about him. And I was like, yeah, something's not right about him. I'm going to go ahead, bolt him. And the funny thing about this is a couple of weeks before, I was with my mom and I was talking to her about this. And she was telling me to, whenever you're in a hotel, Patrick, make sure you lock the door from the handle as well as bolt it. And if you need to, put a towel over the bolt. And when I was hearing this, I wasn't thinking anything too bad was going to happen. But when I saw this guy and I saw what was going on, I was like, okay, we need to bolt this. So I ended up doing that. And I told Matt and Ethan a little bit, just like I had a bad feeling about it. And then we kind of changed the subject. We kind of laughed a little bit. And then we went to bed a couple of hours later. And basically how the room was laid out, there were 2 beds and a pull-out couch. I let Matt and Ethan have the beds, and I took the pull-out couch. And I wanted to take the pull-out couch because, well, personally, I don't care, and I wanted to kind of treat Matt and Ethan and all that, since we were all having a big day. And those 2 are my friends, and whenever I'm around my friends, I always like to take care of them. So I was like, you guys can have the bed, I'll take the couch, I don't care. And they were like, okay, thanks, Patrick. So yeah, basically after that, fall asleep. I fall asleep around 12:31 in the morning. That's usually when I go to bed. And then around 4:15 in the morning, I wake up and I start hearing something going on. It was kind of like that. And I woke up, I was like, what the hell's going on? And then I kept hearing it, and I heard that, and I could tell that was someone trying to get into our room because it was like a key or something like that. It was the key stuff that was going on there, and I ended up getting up and to look out the people. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention is when we got in there, the peephole was covered with like tissue paper or something like that, or a piece of toilet paper. And I was like, yeah, I do not want that there. So I ended up digging it out with one of those small straws that you use to stir your coffee in. And basically, I do that. It takes me like 2 to 3 minutes. It's not that difficult. I ended up getting out and I was like, yeah, I need this out. And it's a good thing I did because when I did, I ended up looking out in the peephole and I saw that there was some like sheets or something like that. Or I wasn't entirely sure. There was like maybe some towels, some sheets or something. I wasn't sure what was going on. And so I was like, okay, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm just going to head back to bed. So I ended up heading back to bed. But then a couple of minutes later, that same sound from before happens again. And this time I hear a conversation going on. Now, I couldn't get the full conversation, but I caught the end of it, and it was who I believe to be a hotel staff employee saying room 210, and the guy says, yeah, thank you. And that's all I got from it. So I looked out the peephole again, and the same guy we were talking to in the elevator and who was lurking around a little bit too long, he was in front of the door right there. He was right there, and he was picking up his stuff. He had a bunch of sheets with him. He had a duffel bag. No idea what was in it, and he just walked off and presumably went to room 210. I don't know where he went after that. And seeing this, I freaked out. I freaked out. And Matt woke up. He was getting a little too hot, and he woke up suddenly, and I told him, "Hey, someone tried to get into our room," and I told him what was happening with that, and he was like, "Okay," and he seemed a bit bothered by it, but he went back to sleep. I, after that, didn't know what to do, so I called my mom, told her, "Hey, someone tried to get into our room," and I explained the situation. I ended up waking Ethan up in the process of me talking to my mom, and I talked to her. And after I got off the phone, I talked to Ethan. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "Ethan, someone tried to get into our room. That's what's going on." He was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah." He wanted to go out and see who was there and figure out what was going on. I was like, "Ethan, don't go out. I would not do that if I were you." And he ended up doing that anyway. He looked around. There was no one there. I didn't think there would be by that point. And Ethan looked. We talked about it for a couple of minutes, and then he ended up going to bed. But because after seeing that, I could not fucking sleep right there. I could not sleep, and I ended up staying up till like 6:30 or something like that. I ended up going to bed, waking up about an hour later. So I only got 4 hours of sleep that night. That was pretty not fun. And afterward, in the morning, I talked to the person who was running it, and we ended up talking to the hotel staff about it, seeing what was going on, and they said that apparently the guy thought it was his room and we weren't in the system for some reason. I don't know, and he thought that was his room and he was trying to get into that. Now, seeing what I had seen and the encounter I had with him, I didn't and still don't buy that entirely, but I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. They gave us a partial refund for all of that. A lot of other people had some restless nights as well because some staff, like apparently other rooms weren't in the system as well, but that's besides the point. And yeah, that shit was scary right there. And I'm telling this story as a bit of a cautionary tale, because if you're in a hotel and you're by yourself, there's two things you should be doing. First thing you should do is, if it's like a motel or something, close the curtains and then lock the door. And not just lock it like the doorknob, just bolt it as well, because something like that could have happened. And my biggest concern is, what if the key worked and I didn't bolt it or do any of the other things I did? Like, what was his intentions? I don't 100% know to this day, and this happened like 3 weeks ago. So, yeah, I'll probably never know what, but yeah, that was some scary crap right there. And I wanted to kind of just speak out about that since I'm seeing a bunch of other stories about that. So, yeah, this is a longer video than before, but yeah, have a nice day, guys. Stay safe.